All right. Well, you want to introduce yourself, Dean? Tell me a little bit about your business.
All right. I'm Nathaniel Chase. I own Nathaniel B. Chase Carpentry, which is a small residential carpentry outfit here in Bourne. Work on the Upper Cape mostly. Started back when I was in college. So I've been doing it for just about 20 years.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. 20 came up quick.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I had my 20-year high school reunion, and I was just like, it's happening. So I started with a company at Bourne. He's since retired, named Mark Mahoney. How I got to work with him. My father knew him. And just when I came home from college one end of this year, he's like, I got a job for you. You can be a carpenter. And I've done it a couple times with other family friends, but just, quick, like a couple weeks and then go do something else. And I enjoyed it. The crews were great.
So you got into carpentry in college?
Heavy. I worked for a couple weekends here and there, but yeah. So right around 18 when I came home, 18, 19, that my freshman year. Yeah. I started working with Mark Mahoney. And I loved it. It was great. You're working outside, you're creating things, just the camaraderie amongst the crews. I was working on the crew of about 6.
It's as close to playing a sport as it can be.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was physical. You got some energy out, or you're working in the sun, I enjoyed it.
It was summertime, not winter.
Yeah. It was exactly, it was exactly.
That's a different game.
You go to the beach after work, it was just a real idealistic time. And, I fell in love with it, and I did the full, college thing. And the whole time I was in college, I always worked on the weekends and came back for the summer, of course. And, I just fell in love with it. In college, wasn't really, my thing.
Sure.
I finished it on my mom's request, barely. But, I did. Yeah, she made me stick with it. But I, right through around my, I was 20, my sophomore year, I knew at the end of that, I was like, I'm probably going to be a carpenter with a college degree. So just a good vacation for 4 years. And, that's kind of how I started. Yeah.
Nice. Josh?
Well, I'm a landscaper with a psychology degree, so I appreciate where you're coming from.
I'm a psychology. Or what do we got? I think that's unique because I'm a carpenter with psychology as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Psychology was one of the easier courses, I think, at UNH. So that was my path of least resistance.
Okay.
I'm Josh Mark. We're with CMS Landscape. My father started the business in 1973. So. Yeah, we've been doing it for a long time. I guess I've been doing it since the child labor laws were different back in the day. So
they're dragging you at 8,
Yep, absolutely. I hope he doesn't get in trouble for that.
Sexual limitations over.
I think so. So that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Nate, you kind of touched on this. Like, you knew you wanted to do this after you started doing this your freshman year. Like, that was, like, the driving factor, having these experiences with the guys, being at a different job site, every couple of weeks, being outside, the team effort, like, that was a driving force.
Yeah. And, again, the creating things. Like, we'd work a week or so, and then you walk away, and, that house is fully trimmed, sided, windows in. That was, very gratifying for me.
Did you have a point that you knew?
So I don't know when I knew that I wanted to do it. Ours was a lot out of need.
Okay. Did you go right into it after school? Like, did you get out of school and go to work?
Yeah, so I did it since I was a little kid. I used to push the small part of the 20-inch mower because I couldn't reach the upper part. My father started. He worked part-time.
Okay.
So he worked at Sears, which is a retail. Yeah, a lot of people probably don't know, but it used to be like a big retail store.
You could buy a house from Sears.
You could buy a house from Sears. Yeah.
Go to the mall is going to Sears.
Yeah. So we would just try and help him out on the weekends and that kind of thing. My brother and I, and so we were just trying to pay the bill, honestly.
Sure.
And then he lost his job with Sears, and Brian and I were in college.
Okay.
So we had to make a big push.
Sure.
Because we had some big bills to pay.
Yeah.
So
They don't let you go to UNH for free on that golf scholarship, right?
yeah, no, I wasn't quite good enough. Still not. But
Okay.
so yeah, so we, I guess I've always enjoyed it, but the genesis of it was more out of a need.
Necessity.
Yeah. So we just had to pay the bill.
I mean,
we had to figure out how to.
it's
pay
pretty
the bill.
impressive what you guys have, made it out of that.
Yeah. My brother and I bought the company off my father probably about 10 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We thought he'd have a hard time stepping away,
Right.
but my brother had a couple of kids, and then he just went right.
Preoccupied homes.
Yeah, he went right into grandparent mode.
Okay.
And that's actually worked out quite well for Michelle and I now. He spends a lot of time with our kids.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
That's
special.
awesome.
Pretty special. Yeah, so I think the question, when did I know I wanted to do it?
Yeah.
I think I always kind of knew, but
But there came a
but
point that
the genesis was more
there's
necessity.
driving force.
Yeah. But I do enjoy it. It's a good profession.
Okay. I'm Charlie Barnes with Barnes Custom Builders. I've been in business since like '09. And I started getting into the trades when I was like 15 years old-ish. It just was too young to drive, and I remember getting picked up to go to work. And I had a similar kind of experience. I started framing houses for a local guy in Falmouth, and I think after the first week of work, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. You know what I mean? Back then, we were doing a cape, roofed and sided every 2 weeks, and it was just like the most insane thing I'd ever done.
Impressive.
It was obviously 2x4 walls. You didn't have to have insulation like you do now, and codes are very different then. But like at the end of a month's period of time, like you had a couple of houses to look at, and it was like super wild. So I'd say that like in that age group into high school, like I got really heavy into shop class and making stuff. I knew that I wanted to like build houses. Like I think even before I went to college, and then I kind of did the same as you guys. I went to school for forever. And
Dr. Barnes.
Are you supposed to go to school for just 4 years? I'm not clear on that.
it really depends. It really depends on what you got going on, right?
That's the overachievers. Kid.
Yeah, I had 4 years going on myself too.
And I was fortunate enough to like do trimesters at school. So like I would work in the summertime. I'd stack my schedule certain days that I could sneak out and do the thing. And then in wintertime, we had a whole semester that I would go to work. And it's been kind of what I've been into for a very long time. And it's that team mentality. It's like playing high school football or lacrosse. You like get a bunch of the boys together or your teammates, and you're thriving off of that energy. And it's fun.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I guess you mentioned Mark Mahoney, right? And like one of my questions for you guys is like, is there a company or person that you idolized as you were coming into this, into this career path, or like even as a young guy? I'm sure it's like your dad, right?
Yeah, for me it was my father was he was a workhorse. He
Sure.
just
Had to do it.
Yep, he had to do it, but he loved it too. I mean, he got a lot of joy out of it. I think my mother gets undervalued in the story, typically because she was always working the books, making sure everyone got called back. All the nuanced things that
Need to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the need not want sometimes.
Yes,
like
exactly.
That's,
Yep.
the hard thing. Yep.
Chris, you gotta call him back. So she was a great role model in that.
My
regard.
son for 12 hours. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
When you're so focused on just getting the job done,
Sure.
you can lose track of
100%,
of keeping the bills going out and being paid and all those things. And it takes my wife has done that for me for a while until I got an account in the last couple of years, and it's a critical part.
Absolutely, John. It's interesting. You get into the trade because you the joy of building the house. You don't know about all the other stuff behind the scenes that has to happen. That has to happen. It's non-negotiable, right?
Not at all.
But so yeah, my mom was really critical in that piece, and she still works with us today.
Okay. So mom's the idol.
Yeah, we'll give it to mom on this.
That works.
Yeah.
We talked about Mark Mahoney. So like I had a buddy in high school that would after we'd get out of school, you get out at 2:15, he would fly down to Northbound with a Picasso or whatever and go work for Mahoney. And as an outsider looking in, I was always like completely blown away by these guys doing like old school craftsmanship, hand nailing everything. Like, you know, you picture almost like a block planer or a rasp to tune things up, and it was like super traditional craftsmanship. And I always like was very into that kind of style and, you know, what that looked like. So like, you know, that was somebody that I always was like, oh, that's the company, you know. And then later on meeting you and you know, growing up working there was like super cool. I think one of the others when I was younger, you know, being a Falmouth guy was like C.H. Newton was huge and pretty prominent back then outside of the estate care, you know, hitting the Penzance and the West Falmouth, Chabby and all that, doing like these crazy shingle style houses, and knowing a couple of guys that worked on framing crews for those companies, like they were doing just such outside the box stuff with like flares and round stuff. So I'd say that those two guys really were like some of the companies I looked up to.
Yeah,
That's cool.
well, that like touch base on what you said about like having a block plane,
Right.
stuff like that. Like that was a part of the tool that you had.
Mandatory in your backs.
When
Right?
you were hand nailing everything. When I was working for that company, you know, I had other friends that were framing and doing all these things, and I didn't use a framing gun for half the things we used it, but we were hand nailing the bottom of our walls, our
Sure.
framed walls. And I remember I'd go work weekends with, you know, other carpenters that were working, you know, and they're like, all right, go build that wall. And they're like, whoa, this is going to take too long. And it was just a practice that was a little dated.
Sure.
It worked well, but it was not as the most efficient way to build a wall in modern, you know, technology, you know, with, you know, traditional framing that we do now.
I think that it's one of those things that like I've seen out in industry forever is like you give a guy a hand nail to go like toenail something or put a rafter and tack it in, and like you know right away if you can't toenail a stud or a rafter in place and that thing's not walking all over the place, they got no idea how to use these things. You know?
Well, that's it. Just today when I have guys come work for me, and you know, whether we go to use their hammer, besides you know ripping something apart,
Sure.
they don't quite know how to use it. It's, you know, they could shoot a
Separates
nail
men from boys.
They
Right?
can shoot a nail real good, and they know how to toe it all and stuff like that. But when they come to set it with their hammer, it's a skill that's not nearly as used as it used to be.
Nobody needs 23 ounces of steel, right?
No.
All right, so I you know, going down this path, you know, we're super fortunate to live in, you know, and work on the Cape, and it comes with its challenges. So, like, what do you find are some of the hardest things that you deal with on the day to day being on this island?
Yeah, so I think that I think things have improved a bit, but labor is one of our bigger challenges.
Sure.
We have a great team. We've worked really, really hard at it to build and to keep the team. But I think that as the Cape's getting so expensive, and it's hard to keep and attract young talent. So I think that's one of our bigger challenges.
Right.
Agree completely.
Yeah.
That has got to be the number one challenge.
Sure.
Everyone thinks that, you know, they can work it for a little bit and then they go, they're looking to see where the next job is, especially for a small company like me. I can only offer so much.
Right.
And, you know, each year I'm offering more and more just to keep up, you know, and try to keep it more attractive to work for my company. But it's really hard. Everyone wants so much. And with the skills they're coming with, especially with the younger carpenters, you know, when I'm talking like a 30-year-old carpenter, which is not that young.
Right.
These are skills you're expecting out of someone who is in their, you know, mid to early 20s.
Right. Late
And-
teens. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and they want top dollar, and you know, and eventually you got to pay close to it because you just need the help. Because doing a trade you can't do by yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I find you're filing through a lot of people to find that right fit.
And then you got to perform for the customer too. So there's a certain expectation of
Oh, yeah.
like, you know, timeline and, you know, fit and finish. You know, I remember like going into school and, you know, like making that decision, say like you're 15, 16, whether you go to college and stuff. And like, there was a mass exodus, like, you know, school with like 1,500 people. And I think out of my graduating class, I had like one or two friends that didn't go off to school,
Sure.
you know? So like that whole, you know, migration off Cape, and then it doesn't come back. Like, I feel like once they got off Cape and they went to Boston or New Hampshire or whatever, like they weren't coming back to come live here, you know. And I think it was different then, where like you didn't come back and live at your folks' house like you know, kids are doing now. So I think that's a huge challenge. I mean, I still see it at the Voc level. Like we tried to capture some of those kids, and they'd rather go to school for an extra week than go to work, which is mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling.
You get paid
because you do pay them, right?
Like, yeah, of course. Like if you told me I could skip a week of school every other week to get paid, I'd like, see you later.
Absolutely.
That's how I first started, because I wasn't sure I could keep a full-time carpenter. So I'm like, I'll take 2 Voc kids, one junior, 1 week, and a senior the other week.
Oh, yeah, set them up.
And it was an epic fail.
Yeah.
You know, they just, they're kids,
Right.
so you take it with a grain of salt. But it's they were just, one just didn't have a car. He told me he had a car, and then it comes time to Sunday night, he calls me, he's like, you know what, I don't actually have
Just
a car, so I cannot come to do it.
He was bad in his wrist. And I'm like, really? I'm like, at one point, did you feel we're gonna have Harvard Law and
yeah, and he's like, yeah, I thought I was, and it just didn't turn out like it was gonna happen. And the other one just never showed up.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, I've heard some great success stories too with Voc kids too. So don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I think I just had, you know, not they're kids. Right. We all know how we were when we were 16 and 17.
Yeah. You need a mentor and somebody to keep you in line and all that, and then, you know, getting put in the box is probably pretty hard, you know.
Yeah.
What's the best part about working here?
Cape Cod.
it's Cape Cod. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of people coming.
What's that mean to you? Like, what's Cape Cod mean? Like, you know,
well,
I know
work
it's
or for
just like, yeah. What makes it the best part about being here?
well, the influx of people from other, you know, from Boston, Connecticut, New York, you know, wherever, coming here to vacation. And when you go, where do you go? What do you do when you're on vacation? You spend a lot of money. And if you have a rental home or an income property, or if it's your, you know, residence, you know, you got to maintain these things. And typically, if you have enough money to afford a second home, you can afford to keep it up.
It's your showpiece.
Yeah.
And you're proud of it, right?
Yeah. In the trades, that's phenomenal for us.
Right.
And yeah, so you have that extra, in addition to just all the, you know, maintenance work that, you know, just the average homeowner needs, who lives here year round. So you have that extra, you know, secondary home. That's, I mean, as a business, to me, that's, you know,
Couple extra square feet.
yeah, you couldn't find a better place to do a trade than Cape Cod. I mean,
Yeah. So for me, I think when I was thinking Cape Cod, it's more that I'm an outdoors guy.
yeah,
So I love
Weird.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. I love to be outside. You know, in our world, we get to be outside a lot and you know, enjoy nature. And I think that the Cape to me is one of the most beautiful pieces of the planet. You know, I've been fortunate enough to travel quite a bit, and I got sucked right back in here. I vowed I wasn't coming back to the Cape, but it's a very special piece of the planet in my mind.
Sure.
That, and I would say the team, you know, just to be able to watch what they produce and interact with our team on a daily basis is pretty special.
Nice. I'm kind of on the Nate side here. Like, I feel like on the Cape specifically, we have like such a heritage of like craftsmanship, from like guys making boats in their garages to like, you know, working on these houses, that there's like, I feel like a different caliber of craftsmanship that happens specifically here. And I think it's in relation to like multi-generational homes and some of these like really ornate trim styles and house stylists, you know, that creates a certain kind of work. And I think it's really unique and it's pretty cool. Like if you go on social media and some of these other outlets and you kind of look at building and carpentry across like the general dynamic of like, you know, the country, I think that we have like a really special thing going on here. And it goes even to the outside, you know, areas. Like I've been in people's backyards that just mind-boggling, like the stonework and the pools and like the walls, and it's things that you wouldn't see in a southern Florida or like middle of America or some of these cities, right? Like, and I've got to go around and meet a bunch of other builders across the country and stuff, and I feel like generally we're just that little kind of boutique, if you would. And I think that's pretty
We probably shouldn't tell anybody about how great it is, right?
Come on down.
Let's keep that a secret.
They're still not coming.
So, what's your biggest influence in your industry at this point? Like, I feel like, knowing you, you're not a social media dude. You're not like on Instagram.
We're trying to get better at that, but it's not my gig. Yes.
So, like, what's your influence in your trade and your market? Like, what do you look for as a resource to like up and coming design wise or like product wise?
So we have some really good associations in the landscape world. So there's the Cape Cod Landscape Association. There's a Massachusetts association, and then there's a the National Association of Landscape Professionals.
You guys are pretty involved?
Yeah. My brother is on the board of the Cape Cod Landscape Association.
Have a presidency run here or what?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, perhaps. Actually, I think he's probably lined up for it. But so we do get a lot of education out of those organizations. Interestingly, my father didn't put a lot of value in that stuff back in the day because he was so busy working. Yeah, like we just had to pay the bill. It's something that we've made an earnest effort in the last probably 8 to 10 years to really get involved in, and it's definitely paying dividends.
Sure.
So I would say that those associations are great, but also our vendor partners.
Right.
They're always bringing us new products, new ideas. I think they're pretty powerful on that too.
Okay. I know you're into the social stuff and kind of,
Yeah, so I'm, much smaller outfit and but just going online and following different carpenters, but not just in this region, out west and what they're doing in the Northwest and, out there they're building crazy things with the red cedars and all that, watching how they build. And there's such a wet climate, which Cape Cod seems to be wetter and wetter each year. Mm-hmm. And the tips and techniques I get from just following these people as they show how they, do weatherproofing and all that stuff, and just how they trim and stuff is slightly different. So I take some techniques from that, and just the old one, if you work with an older carpenter, you just it's just value,
absolutely.
Just to watch them, and because there's a lot of ways to do it, and some ways are quicker, some ways take a little bit longer, but to get to that same avenue, and you can find the way that fits best for you. And so that's probably the two ways that I find the best most recently.
What you're saying really resonates, right? Like we worked together for a bunch of different projects, and we had a guy that we were working with, this guy TK, and he taught us how to do things that were like outside the norm, right? So like I remember framing this roof with you, and like he taught us how to snap it out on the ground and bring it into 3D and use all the angles on the lines. And fast forward 10 years down the line, social media starts making a play in the industry, and there's this guy in California that's a framer, and they're cutting all their roof packages in a warehouse and then shipping them to the job, and they go together. And it's like the same ideology that this guy had. And this guy's now figured out that like I can do these complex roofs that most people can't figure out, and I can do it in the comfort of a shop.
Right.
And then ship the thing down the road, and then even teach other people how to do it. And to me, that's just like absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah,
and then to be able to like stack an entire warehouse full of roof rafters and not even like put a ridge up or whatever, it's just like incredible.
Yeah, these aren't single ridge houses.
Yeah, no, they're like, and like there's another guy in New York that does it. That they're huge hip roofs with like live valleys and everything, and like. You got to be a friggin' math wizard, and I'm sure that guy didn't think he was going to be a math wizard at one point.
Right. You don't want to hear the word trigonometry too much.
No.
This guy, he's spewing.
Practical application.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other. I mean, imagine having that tool in your tool belt when you were a kid, like practical application of like trig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
a
impressive.
game changer. What's your ideal project? So, is it remodeling? Is it like additions? Is it
well,
maintenance?
That's also one of the things I really enjoy this trade, being a carpenter. I do everything. So a new construction, that moment, it's great. But if I did like 5 new constructions in a row, I might get all wiped out. Then we'll throw a deck in there. Then we'll go, do some windows, sidewall a house, and, put an addition on, maybe take out a load-bearing wall, another one. But the variety is my ideal job in this trade, because I don't get stuck in on the tediousness of one thing. For me, it's tedious. Some people, the trade's really broken down into segments. Now you have framers, siders, where
I couldn't imagine going and doing finish work every single day.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the same thing. Everyone's like, I just want to be a finished carpenter. But I mean, you give me finish work for a month and a half, 2 months, I'm dying to go outside and, frame a little bit, get lifted up. So that's the thing the appeal of my ideal job is just the variety, switching it up a little bit.
What about you? Hardscapes, maintenance, like what's
I tend to be more of a on the construction side of the house. Our company, we do a lot of high-end residential care for our clients.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of that. I like more of the build side of the world.
We're talking like pools and walls.
Pools and walls, and patios and plants. I love plants.
Okay.
So I heard you say the walls and the pools earlier. I was gonna chime in and say, there's some great plants out there. You should be observing as well.
Fiscus?
Ficus. But I do really like the mixing it up as well. It's fun to.
That's a great thing of the trades people realize is you're not just doing one thing day in and day out. There's so many opportunities just in each individual trade.
And in project to project.
Yeah,
it's always.
What I always found interesting about your hardscapes is we build this house on this rough lot, and water the whole time we're framing it is just pumping against the foundation, and then companies like yours will come in and make sense of that.
Sure.
Get drainage. Get pitch. Get walls to retain, so instead of having a steep slope, now we can have a flat area. But that is what I'm always impressed with, the landscaping at the end, because these sites are so rough and they're just a mess while we're working on them. And then your companies come in and make absolute sense.
We put the frame on your beautiful picture, I think.
Exactly, and make the house functional, because if it wasn't for that, you couldn't live in these houses because the water would be going into the basement. It would just be too much against the house, and we just couldn't keep it away. No waterproofing would have protected it enough unless you can shape the land to keep it away from the house.
I think one of the other pieces that there's gratification at the end of the day. Like you put in a good. Unfortunately, I don't get to be in the field nearly as much as I used to be, but when I got into it, like that was the thing. Even if it was mowing the lawn, you finish mowing the lawn and you look back and
Somebody snap a chalk line on it?
yeah, I mean it's like perfect line.
Right.
Yeah. The joy of creating something and that gratification of seeing what you accomplish at the end of the day.
I feel like my ideal project now is like something that is like heavily design orientated. Like I want to be involved in the design process from the beginning to kind of facilitate the build or the end product and like not have as much outside influence. You know what I mean? I really I've started to enjoy that a lot more over the years.
Put your stamp on it.
Yeah. And then things like what I've always seen it divide is like, you go and do the house project and then like landscaping, and that never like really meld together.
Sure.
And I feel like there's such an important integral piece to making those things go together at the right timing, and having them be like completely separate sometimes like doesn't facilitate the job very well.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But we've done a bunch of outdoor projects lately, and like it's super fun. It's like that secondary little piece that gets me going now.
I think and you have a unique ability to see the whole picture, right?
Right.
So you've been in this in the trade for a long time. I think a homeowner can show you something on Pinterest and say, this is kind of what I'm looking for.
Right.
You can design and envision and get it.
Yeah. How do you make what they like out of that? Real time. I mean, super challenging sometimes, and sometimes you see the direction, you can run with it.
But you also pick up on a bunch of little things that they'll never
even
think
go.
about,
Yeah.
right? Like,
We were just having this talk the other day about a driveway layout, and I think your take was, if we put a fence here, where do I plow the snow?
Yeah.
And today happens to be snowing, so like it makes sense. But like, I feel like in that same exercise, you're looking at warranty issues or things that don't jive right, a door hitting something. It's all those like things that you bled and had to rip out or mess with that, have your area expertise kind of get layered.
Sure.
which is cool.
And we've learned a bunch in our business through mistakes, right? Like we made a few we made a few
Tuition,
mistakes.
man.
Yeah, we
Fortunately, yeah.
we paid that price a few times, but you learn from those, and then you don't make the mistake again, and you can help your client avoid those mistakes. I think.
So my last little question here is, it kind of pertains to the Cape, right? And I feel like we're in a very interesting spot in that. So like, where's your area of work? And I know that a lot of guys have like specific places that they work because it's a logistical exercise, or like the people they work with work in this area, or like their clientele is. Are you just a Bourne guy? Are you born in Falmouth?
So yeah, we tend to stay upper
Go over
Cape.
the Iron Mountain?
We stay away from the Iron Mountain to the extent possible. We do go up on occasion, but there's a cost to going over the bridge. I mean, it's like, it takes a lot of time, you know. But yeah, I would say Upper Cape, Bourne, Falmouth, Sandwich, Mashpee, Katuitt, Edgewood. That's kind of our niche.
45-minute radius?
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
Yeah. And we stay away from the islands. The Vineyard in Nantucket.
It's Mars.
That it's a different planet. Yeah. It's fun to visit, but I don't want to work there.
Same. I've been lucky in the last several years to really keep it between Bourne and Falmouth.
Right.
But if we go back a little bit, I was all over the map. I was wherever the job came in, and but recently it's been the Upper Cape, specifically Bourne and Falmouth. That's where the jobs have been coming in and keeping me going. But that's ideal because of the quick commute as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think to that point, sometimes it's your most profitable work can be no, right? Like to say no to a job that can be tempting,
right?
But if it puts you out of your comfort zone, or the management of a job,
you're traveling an hour to and from.
Yeah.
That's when your guys are going to be, showing up later. You try to keep them in order, or just keeping the job running efficiently, and then you're spending a lot more money commuting. And if you don't have to, which sometimes, like I said, the Cape's a great place to work. You get your niche and your name starts getting out there more and more.
It becomes a community.
You're a community builder. You're working in your community, which happens.
What's the market for bar?
I've kind of been in the same boat, like Falmouth, Bourne, Katuitt, some Mashpee stuff. But we have customers that we've gone and done the Wellfleet thing, or
Sure.
Like I get a customer that has a house off Cape, and we'll go deal with some stuff. But it's taxing on the guys, I think, specifically, right? Like,
sure.
There's always bridge work going on, like in height of season, there's traffic. So like, we did a project down in Wellfleet, and like getting the guys back to the Cape and this way was taking like an hour and 45 minutes. And like, that's a super morale kill. And it, like, it's hard to do that grind for an extended period of time and still like want to be excited about doing the work. And then being local to your community and that kind of thing, I think is super important too. Like that's your referral base and, your wheelhouse, like your vendors, your supply house, if they're all, kind of close to your epicenter, like you can excel and do better work.
I agree with
Sending a guy to go project manage a job in Boston, like, you got parking, you got so many different factors that like, I don't think that you're going to be able to give the right product.
Right. Exactly. Agreed.
Cool. I guess thanks for your time, guys.
Charlie, this was fun. Thanks for the invite. This was it was pretty cool. It's good to connect with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's neat.
We'll have to do this again.
Cool. I'm on board.